Hey everyone, welcome back to my Geek Rant. So while everybody went out and bought Star Wars toys, I went out and bought a slew of Star Wars books. And my first book that I have read is Star Wars Aftermath, which is the first post-Return of the Jedi book that's within the canon. I will be doing a non-spoiler review, but I will be getting into spoilers at the tail end of this video, so I'll give a note of when that's going to happen. But right now, non-spoilers. So, to put the book into context as a short review, I would say it's a set of interesting anthologies masquerading as a not as interesting novel. And I definitely would have preferred the former. I would have preferred just reading a bunch of short stories about the context of where the galaxy's at. But I will admit that towards the end, the main storyline, the characters kind of snuck up and grew on me. While I didn't fall in love with them at the end, I didn't really care about their story at all, it definitely ends better than it starts. There's also some very interesting ideas in this book, but I don't think any of them were really fleshed out, especially like I said, the anthologies are, just little short little things that we get, little interludes. There was a lot of interesting stuff in there, but obviously, there's this main storyline that we always jump back to, and we don't dive in deeper to the really interesting stuff. The only thing I say that from the main storyline that I was really interested in was the meeting between the Empire, the shattered Empire that we have now. So essentially, the context of the book is that the Empire is meeting up on this planet called Akiva, or Kiva, not sure how to pronounce it, and they're trying to basically just rebuild, or at least figure out where they are, because they don't know who their leader is. They don't know if they are Empire anymore. Like, there's even a portion of the book where people aren't sure if the ranks that they held mean anything anymore, because without an Empire, really, does rank even matter? Like, can you outrank somebody at that point? And people are fighting for power, and they're deciding if they should be like a council or if they should stay as like a tyrannical rule and all that kind of stuff. Also, we actually have a return character coming for those who've read A New Dawn, which was the prequel novel to Rebels, the TV series. Ray Sloan, Admiral Ray Sloan, is back in the fold, and she's taking on more of a leadership role. She's definitely coming up in the ranks from what we saw from her before, and she's trying to prove herself. She always has this goal to make sure this meeting goes properly, and she wants to be able to rebuild the Empire again. And she also, it's kind of cool because some of the Empire, when they're having this meeting, they're talking about kind of, the failings of the Empire, and they are actually thinking about how to make it better. And this is juxtaposed by the rebels, who are now this new republic, and they're also thinking about how to make their new republic better from what it was before. So they're actually, I always thought it'd be better if they actually had a meeting together, like the New Republic and the Empire talk together, but mostly it's just them fighting, and it's kind of funny because the rebels kind of interrupt the Empire's meeting a little bit too much. Like, the Empire isn't really doing anything. They're occupying the planet, but they're not doing what they did before, where they're just enslaving people and things like that. But the rebels are actually really the antagonists to me in this book, because really the Empire is trying to have a peaceful meeting. Granted, they're being tried for war crimes and things like that, but really they're not really trying to antagonize anyone. They're just having their meeting. They're trying to figure stuff out. They're even talking about how they can make the Empire better, and the rebels just keep pounding on them, and I thought that was kind of funny. But then the Empire does some pretty nasty stuff at the end of the book, and they're like, oh hey, yeah, the Empire, they suck. I kind of wanted to have more of that gray area that the beginning of the book was kind of touching upon, but it didn't really flesh out entirely. But yeah, like I said, my favorite part was easily the interludes. There's a bunch of little snippets from each planet, not each planet, because that would be like millions and millions of planets, but some notable planets in the Star Wars universe and where they are in context. And there's some very cool stuff with, I don't want to get into it yet, I'll talk about it in spoilers, but there's some cool things in there, especially one of the later interludes. But yeah, I actually would have preferred a whole book just like this, just reading, a little bit of short stories, just getting a tidbit, because I feel like the best thing about this novel is just the information that you get. It's not really a very good story or compelling story, and the characters I didn't really care much for, but the little information that you get about the context of the galaxy and where it's at is what was most interesting to me. But that's not really a story, that's not really a novel, but an anthology could kind of get away with that by just being very information based. It's very teasy, especially because you're trying to make this book in the context of teasing episode 7 and The Force Awakens and things like that. But yeah, I feel like it would have been more successful if it was shorter and just the little interludes versus trying to patch together a novel that I didn't really find compelling or I didn't really care about. So let's talk about some of the flaws of this book, because there's quite a bit. One thing that I had a little about was the people of this galaxy knew way too much about the Jedi and the Sith. There were a few characters where it made sense that they would know about, things that Palpatine was doing and things like that, but too much of the Empire seemed like they knew who Palpatine was. He was supposed to be masked, like no one was supposed to know he was a Sith except for Vader and maybe Tarkin. Too many people knew about what the Force was and things like that. And if you think about it, even in the heyday of the Jedi, there was only 10,000 Jedi in a galaxy of trillions. So that they were still a myth even when they were at their height, and people know about them now, which seems kind of weird. I don't know, that didn't rub me the right way. In terms of the world building, that didn't make too much sense to me. The biggest flaw, which everyone is talking about, is the present tense. The narrative is written in present tense. Everything is happening as it's happening, which is really great for screenwriting, which when I researched, the author, Chuck Wendig, he's a screenwriter, and that works really well for screen because screenplays aren't meant to be read, they're meant to be seen. So it's basically a direction for what you see. In a novel, that doesn't really work so much because you want to be in people's heads. You want to get the context of the whole story, and just having the actions beat it so quickly. And the way he writes his sentences too are very short, and his paragraphs are sometimes just one sentence long, and it's very erratic to me. I guess it would be the best way to describe it. At first, I didn't really care for it. I mean, I actually didn't mind it at all. But then going forward, it just it really wears on you, the present tense. And then not that I'm going to review Weapon of a Jedi, which I am later. I'm starting to read that now, and just reading a more classic narrative, I'm like, oh yeah, this is just so much better. Keep everything in the past tense. It's a story a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's not a galaxy here. It's not happening right now. I don't know, something about the narrative structure and style. While I don't think it was terrible, some people were calling it outright terrible. I don't think he did a terrible job, but I don't prefer it. That's what I would say. I don't prefer the writing style at all. Like I mentioned before, none of the characters really jumped out at me. The interesting thing is that there is a character named Nora, who is a I guess Rebel at the time pilot, who actually was in Return of the Jedi. She was in her Y-Wing in the Death Star when they went in and they split off, which is kind of cool. You get backstory on that character. But I didn't really care much for her son, who was just angsty teen who was like, oh, mom, you left me to go save the galaxy. That was stupid. That was stupid. And then there's a bounty hunter who she was pretty cool. And then there was an ex-Imperial who basically turned coat when he saw the horrors of Endor, which I guess that was okay too. But he, like I said, all those characters kind of snuck up on me at the end where I was like, oh, actually they're kind of cool. But I think it's because they started interacting with each other, and some of their interactions were, I thought, pretty cool. Also, another flaw or just a quibble I had with this story is it had too many references to Star Wars, and I feel like that's always an issue with either new Star Wars writers or just in general with any novels or anything like that. It's that's tie-in fiction, is that it references the original material way too much. Just make your book stand on its own. You don't need to say, hey, look, it's a Star Wars film, look at all these things I'm referencing to, I'm totally a fan, right? Just make a story and make it good. And yeah, there was just all the references were very contrived and very forced, and I didn't really, again, that's just an issue I have with a lot of Star Wars novels, is that some of the authors tried way too hard to make it tie into the original fiction. That said, my friend said he really enjoyed the book because he read the audiobook, which actually kind of makes sense to me because the way it's written with the whole present tense in mind, I think it would work really well with an audio drama or an audiobook. And plus, when you have the sound effects and the music, I'm sure that elevates the experience as well. So for that, you get a recommendation from my friend who says, reading or listening to the audiobook is probably the best experience. So it would seem that might be the best experience for this book if you really are interested in looking at it. But really, I would rank this 2 out of 5 stars. I would say you can skim it if you really want to, but really you can read most of the tidbits that for me was the most interesting thing online. If you just look online, you can find those things, and without having to read the whole novel, because I don't feel like it was a very compelling novel for me. The characters didn't really grab me. The interludes I thought were pretty good, and the Empire stuff I felt was the most interesting bits. Though there are some tiny gems, even within the main story and within the entire story itself. Getting into spoilers, I really only want to spoil one thing. There's an epilogue for this novel. And Ray Sloan, she of course makes it out. She's alive. She's cool. She ends up talking to what the book refers to as an admiral. Just that's all they say. But for me, it's pretty clear. I don't know if anyone else got this. It's pretty clear that, or it should be, it's Grand Admiral Thrawn. I think they're going to bring him back into the canon. I know it was a rumor during Star Wars Celebration that he was going to be back in the canon, but I think they said it was going to be through Rebels, but I guess this would be a good way to do it too. And it's totally what Thrawn would do. He has his whole plan basically to get rid of all the current leadership in the Empire, so of course he can take over. It also could be anyone else, in the Star Wars universe, but just because I know so many people love Thrawn and the story group is very aware of that, I think that obviously this is going to be Thrawn, and this could be his new trilogy of books, or we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think that's definitely Thrawn. Anything else I want to spoil? I don't think so. Also, there's the little interlude that someone selling off like Vader's saber was pretty cool. There's cultists who are still following the dark side. Chewie, and like for instance, this is what I meant by me preferring the interludes. There's an interlude where Chewbacca and Han are about to liberate Kashyyyk, and then we just cut away, and it's like, can I see that book, please? Can I just see that? Like, why do I need to go back to Akiva and watching all this stuff with the Empire and the Rebels on this planet that I really don't really care about? Oh yeah, there's also a little bit from Tatooine where there's this new, I guess, officer, or he says something. He's a sheriff. He's basically a sheriff, and he's basically taming Tatooine now that Jabba's dead, and the Empire is breaking apart. So the Empire is not supporting bounty hunters anymore. So that's cool. And there's just a lot of like all the little short stories were way better than the entire novel. But that's it. I'm gonna stop ranting about that, even though this is what this video is called. So. But that's it, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I am going to be reviewing the other books that have come out recently. I'm currently reading Weapon of a Jedi. I'm also going to review this book, which is Star Wars and Everything You Need to Know, which brings lightsaber forms into canon officially. And yeah, I have a few other books that I'm going to review too. Mace Insidious coming out soon. Harry Potter Versus series coming soon. And then finale for the Versus series coming soon. But yes, peace, love, and may the Force be with you. Always. Luke's open and calm mind allowed for a more adaptable fighting style, while Anakin's reliance on talent and aggression was a bit more rigid. No, why are you mowing your lawn right now? I'm recording a Let's Play. Yeah, there's things like that, and then there's a Tatooine, there's this, I'm sorry if you guys can hear that, I'm sorry. So unprofessional. Give me a second, guys.